On behalf of myself, Adrian, the whole host committee, and the board of Trinity Boston Connects, I want to thank you for joining us this evening. We all have lots of competing demands on our digital time these days, but I hope and trust that, like me, you've been inspired by this time together.
I met Louise Packard in 2005 in the early days of what's become TBC. She was holding a fundraiser at Trinity, helping to raise money for the restoration of Roxbury Presbyterian Church, which had been severely damaged by a fire. Typically, she wanted no credit for her efforts. "We aren't the story," she told me that day. "The story is that if we got to know each other, this would be a different city." That drive to build connection was at the heart of everything she did in this organization, and it forms the core of TBC's mission. It's a pleasure to honor her tonight.
What I found myself thinking about most throughout tonight is how Trinity Boston Connects puts into practice some of the things that we talk about all the time as a city. When we talk right now about what Boston's youth need confronting these twin pandemics, as Charmaine so aptly said, of COVID-19 and systemic racism, we talk about the need for social and emotional learning, and we talk about the need for wraparound services that really help our young people heal from trauma. This is precisely the work that TBC is doing in all its youth development programs. They show us how all that talk actually cashes out. Long-term relationships built at TEEP over the course of 6 years form our young people into community leaders. Soul Train addresses the whole body and whole mind, as so beautifully expressed by Juliana and Anita in their powerful story. At the McCormick Middle School, TBC's counselors, being embedded in that school community, really put clinical care into that fuller context of community care. The alchemy of Trinity Boston Connects is that the values of racial equity, healing, and restorative justice are put into action on the ground. We no longer have to ask what these theories would look like in practice and what are the types of programs that we desperately need to scale up.
The mission of TBC is to confront systemic racism in the city and in the lives of the youth we serve. We're unique in the ways we do that, both through direct service programs like TEEP, as well as working with the leadership and staff of nonprofits and public schools to learn to reform their own practices and address the many ways structural racism manifests itself. TBC is truly a transformative program in the city of Boston. That has never been more important than it is now, as our city and our nation navigate a huge reckoning with inequality. We've seen over the past few months how privilege can divide us into winners and losers with dramatic and even deadly consequences. Leveling that playing field is the work of TBC, and we need your help on that journey.
So the time is now. Before we leave, I want to echo Louise's request and encourage you once more to join the movement for healing by giving generously to support Charmaine's leadership and the intense demand for Trinity Boston Connect's essential work in this hard and extraordinary time. It is so easy for all of us to be gripped by paralyzing fear right now. And I want to suggest that we instead take the hope embodied in TBC as our antidote, and that we recognize the opportunity in this terrible crisis to pour all that we can into supporting that work. Thank you.
Thanks so much for joining us tonight.